Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our backyard. In this morning's video, I want to share with you a wonderful plant for heat, humidity, I should say very high heat, is a paniculata phlox, which is right here. My name is Crystal, and I garden south of Houston, along the Texas Southeast Gulf Coast in Zone 9, and it is hot, humid. Most of the time we get pretty large amounts of rain, and we've got heavy clay soil. Let me get in a little closer to this phlox. This is a very special type of phlox. We were gone this weekend, and I came back, and I knew our phlox was going to be blooming soon, and it's just starting to bloom. You can see it is opening up. This one, I guess, has the most blooms on it. So we came back from the weekend, and this lovely phlox had already started to bloom. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful plant this is. The reason I'm doing this is because I have mentioned this in the past. In fact, last summer I mentioned this phlox doing very well in our heat and humidity. And why is this so unusual? Well, down here, phlox is a winter plant for us. The normal annuals, most phloxes don't perform well in our heat and humidity. This particular phlox, though, is an exception. It is this paniculata type that has this gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous bloom head. Here's my hand to give you a little bit of perspective. It has a beautiful fragrance. It has an upright growing habit, as you can see. And my one plant has turned into this nice little patch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the description an article. So it's an older article. I think it's from the archives, but it is by the nurseryman that found this plant in a garden in San Antonio, actually in St. Augustine grass, and he persuaded the owner of the modest home to let him propagate this, because this is unusual. We don't have phlox that does well for us in the summer. It succumbs to typically phlox succumbs to powdery mildew. It can't take the heat. It doesn't perform. Like I said, a lot of our phloxes, especially the annuals, you'll see at nurseries down here in the wintertime, and that's the only time we have it. This phlox, though, is a summertime fantastic performer, and like I mentioned, it is a Texas superstar. So in the description, I am going to put this article, actually by famous nurseryman Greg Gant. And I hope you can read it. To get to the description, if you're not familiar in YouTube, if you click on the More button under the video where the information is, or the three little dots next to each other, you can open that up and it should show you then the whole description. I will put a link in that description so you can read the article. It's really good. In the heat last year, there are a lot of plants that just did not perform. This one did. It has a light pink bloom with a dark pink center. And this paniculata, or this bloom head, is just fantastic. And it blooms and blooms and blooms way into the fall. This particular John Fanick Phlox did not miss a beat last year. which is saying something because we had a brutal, brutal summer. The only thing I had happen is we had high winds when I had the big bloom heads formed. We've had high winds this spring, but the bloom heads weren't formed yet. And you can see it didn't topple over. Last year, when the bloom heads were just heavily laden with flowers, unfortunately, a couple of them flopped over. And all I did was take a bamboo stake, stake it in next to the plant, and it just propped up fine. So it didn't miss a beat blooming or continuing to grow, and it did fantastic. I love this dark color foliage. It sets it off real nice. And believe it or not, this does not succumb to powdery mildew. I've had John Fanick Phlox for 4 years. The first year I didn't do right by it. So I planted it in a container with a large porterweed that took over the container. And so even though it still survived, I did not do right by it. So I planted this in a slightly raised bed. Has well-draining soil in it. And then, of course, access to the clay underneath. And it has, let me pan back just a little bit. It is right next to my fence. This is the southern side of my fence. So this little patch is in full sun for half of the year and full shade for the other half of the year in winter. But this doesn't perform in the winter time. It will die back to the ground. In fact, it is rated for zones, I think 3B through 9B. It's either 3A or 3B through 9B. And it comes back for me each year. And this little patch right here of one plant has grown wonderfully. I love this flower. The swallowtail butterflies in particular really like this flower. And you can see it is just going to continue to bloom and bloom. I love these bloom heads. It's a very strong and sturdy plant. And I am so happy to have this in the garden. I have to admit, I didn't really know a lot about it when I originally purchased it 4 years ago. And after seeing how it performs, how well it performs in our summertime, how long it performs, it will bloom months, I was sold. I have it in front of my blue chiffon Rose of Sharon, and that Rose of Sharon has grown pretty slowly. This phlox is fast becoming one of my hot summer favorites. I'm behind it now from a different vantage point. One of the things that I have observed is I have it in this raised garden bed. And in this raised garden bed, I have anoles all over my yard. Green anoles, brown anoles, they're the little garden lizards. And they love to feed on eggs. Caterpillar eggs, they love to feed on butterflies, bugs, really anything that they can get to eat. I have observed them when butterflies land on this. I have observed anoles to be opportunists, and I have seen them eat Gulf fritillary butterflies, painted lady butterflies, and it just breaks my heart. And I think, oh, they know where to go. The anoles know where to go and where to hide out and patrol because they are opportunists. These plants will get from 2 to 3 feet, and they're tall. they're just not necessarily tall enough to escape those anoles. I still see swallowtails. Yesterday I had pipevine swallowtails on these particular flowers throughout the whole day. When you get down and you smell their fragrance, they're very aromatic. It is a wonderful addition to the garden. And the more I learn about this phlox, the more I'm impressed I am. So I guess it was considered luck because I bought the first plant purely because I loved the bloom head on it. It had that big mop of a pom-pom, and I was just taken aback with what it looked like at the nursery. But now that I've seen it perform in my yard, I hope to always have John Fanick Phlox in the yard. I mentioned that it has increased in size and in number. It recommends that you divide the plant every 2 to 3 years, so I need to divide this, and I will be dividing it, so I will have to find another spot in my yard. I've mentioned it is a Texas superstar. The one thing I do want to point out is you will need to supplement water if you are not getting rain, because it does require water. It is not a great drought tolerant plant, so just be aware of that. So if you are looking for a pollinator attractor, if you are looking for a phlox that will grow well down in the south in the summer, I highly recommend that you look at trying out this phlox. John Fanick Phlox is a wonderful heat-tolerant phlox that is a pollinator attractor that has beautiful foliage, wonderful, wonderful scent to the flowers. And I'm probably doing this video a little bit early because the bloom heads are not fully formed, and I apologize, but I was so excited to see this and see these blooms that I just couldn't resist and come out and do a video, albeit it's probably a little early. So I'm curious, do any of you grow John Fanick Phlox in your gardens currently? If you do, let me know. I had posted a picture of this on Monday in my community tab, and one of the commenters said that they have John Fanick Phlox in their yard and absolutely love it. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you again soon.